So I recently turned 23 and I thought it would be interesting to make a video about where my net worth is currently sitting at. I know it's a little unconventional to be talking about finances this transparently, but I think it's important to start taking control of your finances when you're younger. Also, I quite enjoy talking about finance, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who enjoys the subject. As a matter of fact, I got this video idea from a guy named Logan Collier. I saw his net worth video on YouTube, and I got inspired to do the same. I linked his YouTube channel in the description below if you also want to check that out. So this video is kind of just going to be insight into my current financial system, how I got to where I am, and how I plan to scale my net worth in the future. I'll probably break down each individual account starting from smallest to largest and specifically hone in on what I want to do relating to each account in the future. So just some quick background about me. I just graduated a 4+1 program, which allowed me to get my master's in materials engineering and my bachelor's in polymers and coatings, all within 5 years of schooling. During this time, I was also fortunate enough to receive many scholarships from the coating industry, as well as work 20 to 30 hours a week. While I was in school, I got into the finance side of the YouTube algorithm, so I started watching a lot of Graham Stephan, ranging from how to start your first credit card and how to use it properly to how to invest in the S&P 500. And I think this, in conjunction with my working hours, was the catalyst that allowed me to jumpstart my net worth at the age of 23. Nowadays, my life looks pretty normal. I work a typical 9 to 5 as an R&D chemist for a greater paint corporation. So my job and routine looks pretty standard, probably similar to what the rest of you guys' routine looks like. This is just to say that, it doesn't take anything special to start working towards your financial goals and your financial future. And the most important step is really just to, start learning and start investing now. In the same way that Graham Stephan was a catalyst to my financial journey, I hope I can have the same impact on yours with this video. So without further ado, let's get started. So like I said, I'll be going through my accounts in order of smallest to largest. So the first one on the list is actually my savings account at $647.85. I know this seems kind of low as a savings account, but it's basically because I don't actually use this as a savings account. I'd prefer to use a high yield savings account or somewhere else where my money earns a higher yield instead of just sitting there. This bank account serves as a funnel where a portion of my check comes in and then the money gets partitioned out on a weekly basis to my brokerage account and my Roth IRA. I don't really use it for much else, so that's why the portion of money that stays in that account is so low, because I'm not earning interest on this money, so I'd like to keep as little money in this account as possible. All right, the next account on this list is my checking account, which comes in at $2,083.48. This account functions similar to my savings account in the sense that it's just a landing page for my paychecks. This money goes directly towards paying any monthly expenses such as rent, gas, or paying off my credit cards. I usually try and keep about an extra paycheck's worth of expenses on this account just so I can avoid any overdraft fees or any other extraneous fees that banks try and charge me. But again, I try and keep as little cash in this account as possible just because this account earns little to no interest and it's better off for me to hold this money elsewhere. All right, we're breezing through these first few accounts. So my next one on the list is actually my 401k, which is sitting at $3,529.63. This is pretty low. However, I've been at my job for less than a year and I'm only contributing 6%. My company also matches 6%, but this match doesn't kick in until you've been at the company for a year, so this hasn't come into play in terms of my net worth. I'm hoping to see a little bump in my net worth in the near future related to this account once that kicks in. Eventually, I also plan to up that contribution amount to probably like 10, 15%, but right now I'm trying to stay more liquid just because I do want to purchase a house in this near-term future. In terms of the account, I actually opted for a Roth 401k instead of a traditional 401k. The difference essentially is that a traditional 401k contributes pre-tax income, whereas a Roth 401k contributes post-tax income, but in retirement, you don't get taxed on the money you pull out. Figuring out whether to do a traditional 401k or Roth 401k is kind of a complex issue. A lot of factors come into play, such as your current age, your age at retirement, your tax bracket now and your tax bracket in retirement, and your current income. Essentially, for me, it made sense to do the Roth 401k because I'm pretty young right now and my tax bracket is probably lower than it will be in the future. I also plugged all my personal numbers into a calculator to determine which one is better in terms of tax savings, which I recommend all of you to do when you make this decision. And it told me that right now at least, it makes much more sense to be contributing to my Roth 401k. So I don't know if this is cheating or not, but I decided to include my car as an asset, even though I know technically it's not, but it was of substantial enough value to where I feel like it makes an impact on my net worth calculation. So that would be my 2011 Subaru Outback, which I'm valuing at $5,000. The way I got $5,000 is essentially I went on Kelley Blue Book and got their, value for my car, plugged in the condition of my car, the year of my car, all that stuff. It gave me a range of $4,500 to around $6,000. I also went on Facebook Marketplace and checked comparables for my car, sitting at around 160,000 miles, and that gave me a similar range of about like $5,000 to $6,500. So I feel pretty comfortable going on that conservative range and saying this car is worth $5,000. Regardless of how much it's worth, the car is still super functional and doesn't have any problems. So I'm just gonna plan on driving it to the ground. So now we're gonna get into the heavy hitting accounts. So the first one of that would be my brokerage account, which is sitting at $35,291.33. So this account actually means a lot to me because I started it when I was 18 as just like a play money account to understand what investing looked like. So, the simple stuff like buying shares of Apple or buying shares of Google and how that worked and how the stock market performed over time. Now it's kind of evolved into several use cases. The main of which is buying crypto and holding a little bit of my crypto for now. Still fun money, so investing, individual stock picking and buying leaps. And then the third thing is just holding uninvested cash. Right now I hold about $5,000 of uninvested cash in this account. And this actually functions as a high yield savings account because in Robinhood, when you have Robinhood Gold, you get about 4.5% interest on your uninvested cash. So rather than opening some other separate high yield savings account, I just decided to keep any money that I want to use as an emergency fund as uninvested cash in this. I know in a typical emergency fund, you want to store about 3 to 6 months worth of cash. However, right now I see cash as a riskier investment just because of excessive government overspending and printing of money. Also, the industry I'm in is a less risky industry, and so I don't feel at that high of a risk of losing my job or issue in finding a new job. In the future, I do think I'll scale this up to that 6-month mark, but right now it's just not a priority because again, I'm not dealing with a family, so I don't have a wife and kids. So there's less people in a sense depending on me. So I could make that 2 months of uninvested cash extend a little farther if I needed to. In terms of crypto I hold in this account, I hold about 0.25 Bitcoin in this account. I do eventually plan on transferring it to a hardware wallet, which I have. I just haven't gotten around to it. The main reason I have the crypto here in the first place is just because Robinhood offers the lowest cost to trade crypto versus most other brokerages. So naturally it makes sense that I should buy my crypto in Robinhood and then transfer it to another account. Again, I just haven't gotten around to it. For play money in this account, it's mainly just individual stock picking, and the two big ones would really be I hold Amazon leaps and Robinhood leaps. And the main reason is just because Amazon is kind of a no-brainer. Originally, I held a large value of Amazon stock, but I ended up transferring that over into leaps just because I wanted a little more of a long-term leveraged play. Main reasons is just like I don't see any competitor overtaking Amazon in the 5 to 10 year future. I also hold leaps of Robinhood, which I got when the underlying stock was at around $17. There are so many reasons why I'm super bullish on Robinhood. If you want to get that, I covered it in my previous video, but TLDR of it all would essentially be that I see Robinhood as this all-in-one financial platform, and right now it's kind of doing that with its credit cards, its uninvested cash sweep earning interest as a high-yield savings account, its brokerage, it being able to hold a Roth IRA, and a ton of other reasons. But as a company, they seem to move very quickly and they know how to scale their user base, and they've been showing that extremely well over the past couple of months especially. And that's why I think right now you see its stock jumped, I don't know what the percent is, but I think it's around $40 right now from my original $17 purchase price. Again, all of this is definitely not investment advice, and I think the best thing to do in terms of investing is just throw it in the S&P 500. It's the safest, easiest thing to do. But, I can't help but trying to stock pick a little, even though I know there's a chance that I likely will not outpace the S&P 500. It's just fun because, personally, I gain enjoyment out of it, and there's a couple of companies that I really believe in. All right, so next up is my Ledger, which is a crypto hardware wallet. This holds about $36,237.55. So all I really hold is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I don't mess with any of those meme coins like Dogecoin or Huocoin coin, just because, historically they've shown they have no value, and most of the time they're scams or rug pulls. and I see no value in them, whereas I actually really do see value in especially Bitcoin, but Ethereum and Solana as well. This position started at around $10,000, and I've been lucky enough to see it, more than threefold over the past couple of years. I started buying Bitcoin during the hype in 2020 and continued buying actually, especially during the dip in 2022 when Bitcoin was trading at 16 to 20K and Ethereum was trading at around $1,000. What helped me maintain conviction in these times was just reading up and really understanding the importance of Bitcoin. And the books that have helped me do that are primarily The Bitcoin Standard, which is a common one, The Price of Tomorrow, Gradually Then Suddenly, and Fiat Money, or I think it's actually called The Fiat Standard by Lynn Alden. All these books have been, super influential on why I actually do believe in the Bitcoin store of value proposition. I know that's a little controversial for people, and right now, it's definitely a speculative asset, but eventually I do think it graduates into that store of value in a digital gold type way investment. Eventually, I do think I'll make a video on, what are my favorite books relating to Bitcoin, just because, again, it's a topic I like talking about. And, maybe a few of you will find it helpful hearing, why I hold Bitcoin and, maybe essentially summaries on these books and what's so important about them. In terms of what I actually hold in this wallet, again, this is not investment advice, but I have about 0.2 Bitcoin in here, 3 Ethereum, and a small amount of Solana. The reason I store all this in a hardware wallet is, you've heard not your keys, not your crypto. I don't want an FTX type event where any crypto I'm holding in brokerages just disappears and it's not FDIC insured. So I'd rather hold my 24-word seed phrase and, a passphrase to get into this and make it so it's essentially it's in my control. And if I ever lose anything, it's because of my fault, not because some, brokerage over leveraged and started trading my stuff. In terms of what I plan to do with this money, I do plan to hold my Bitcoin for a long time, just because, again, that store value proposition. My Ethereum is a little more of an investment in the sense that I think near term I will sell some of it off just to help me finance that house. All right, let's move on to my final account, which is my Roth IRA, sitting at $36,811.28. I'm also pretty proud of this account because, again, I started it at 18 and I've managed to max out my contributions every year since then. So shout out to Graham Stephan for popping up on my YouTube algorithm and convincing me to start one of these and contribute to one of these because, I thank myself every day for starting it young. I think in terms of what I hold here, I don't really do much play money stuff. It's mainly holding shares of VTI and VOO, which is VTI is a total stock market index from Vanguard and VOO is an S&P 500 index from Vanguard. I use Vanguard just because I think they have the lowest or one of the lowest in terms of fees for managing these index funds. I also hold a marginal amount of shares of Magnificent Seven companies, so Amazon, Google, Apple, and I bias towards these tech companies just because, again, I'm a little more risk on since I'm younger. I also do have a SPY leap, so an S&P 500 long-term option anticipation security equity. And the reason being is because I read a book called Life Cycle Investing. In this book, the authors actually argue to not only diversify investment across asset classes, but also across time. So the main idea is to spread exposure to risk more evenly over an individual's lifetime, especially early in their career when traditional investment strategies underutilize risk-taking potential. That's the primary reason I got these SPY leaps. The authors also essentially take this method and backtrack it and do it across time at any point, even right before crashes. And even though it seems really risky, your median outcome in terms of net worth always comes out higher than more traditional investment strategies. And your deviation, so your standard deviation, actually comes out to be a smaller range. So there's less variation in terms of what your ending net worth will come out to. So I've decided to kind of use this approach, albeit to a smaller extent than they recommend. So that's pretty much it in terms of my investment accounts, but you have to include debts. So for credit cards, I have $1,755.87 on credit cards. This money is, I don't carry a balance because I would never want to pay interest rate on a credit card. That's just it's silly to do. The interest rates are crazy high right now, like 30% or something like that. So these are just monthly spends that'll get eventually paid off using autopay from my checking account. The only other source of debt I have is actually federal student loan debt. So I have about $12,833 of federal student loan debt. This is actually better than most people. I was fortunate enough to have some help from my parents as well as those scholarships that I talked about previously. So I didn't have to take out a crazy amount of debt. I also went to an in-state school, so tuition, instead of being outlandish like 40 or 50K a year, only came out to somewhere around 13,000 a year. So overall, I think I did pretty well. Right now in the student loan debt, I opt to just pay off the minimum monthly payments. The main reason is because I actually got these at great interest rates. So anything from, I believe it's 3% to 4.5%, which to me almost feels like an interest-free loan, because I can get 4.5% on my uninvested cash, or on average 8% from investing in the S&P 500. So even though I have the money to pay off those student loans right now, it just, to me, does not make sense. So I'm just opting to pay off minimum monthlies. So all this brings my total net worth to $105,012.45. In terms of next steps for investing, the first two are kind of givens, which is that I get that 6% match in my 401k. So I'll start getting that from my company, as well as I have a pension investment plan that I get from my company. So that'll help to continue to stack money towards my net worth. Some other stuff I want to do near-term future is, like I said, I plan on buying a house. This will probably be a relatively cheap house, and hopefully rates will go down so I can get a good rate on it. But I'll do that. I plan on getting one that's a little rundown so that I can force equity into the house by essentially fixing it up. And this would allow me to not have to wait until that 7 or 8 year mark to be, I guess, in profit. So I'll be a little more liquid in terms of my house because I forced that equity up front. I also think once all the renovations are done in that house, I do hope to rent out at least one of the rooms to someone around my age. So my local area, I feel like, has a lot of people aged, 20 to 29 who don't want to live in their parents' house anymore but want somewhere else to stay. So I'm thinking, it'd be nice if I could rent one of those rooms to a potential friend / acquaintance at like a relatively cheap price. The only other thing I can really think of in terms of, continual next steps is staying on this path of making sure each paycheck, some of that money goes into my Roth IRA and some of that money goes into my savings account, and living below my means. The last thing I want to do is rack up some credit card debt and have to pay those interest rates, because that's a very slippery slope. I think I'll also focus on, building up a little larger of an emergency savings, like I said before, because, in the near future, I do hope to, start a family. And I think that emergency savings is integral to, that step of starting a family. So I think it's important that everyone take in mind, I actually just started in like 2019, 2020 by, watching these finance videos on YouTube and informing myself about this. And it's only 2024. And I feel like since then I've come a long way. I actually have this screenshot of when I used to use Mint Mobile, and back then I think my net worth was, I believe the screenshot showed around 12 or 13 grand, and this was after a year or a couple of years of me being financially savvy. And so I just want to say, like, every dollar counts, and making sure to continue stacking your money in this way is, it may seem small at the start, but it adds up really quick. And I understand, I am self-aware in the fact that, right now we've had like one of the greatest bull markets in terms of the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, that we may ever see. And so obviously that's contributed to help my net worth accrue up to this point. But even still, small amounts of investing go a long, long way for your future. Also, I'd just like to thank all of you for watching, whether you were curious what my net worth is at 23 or whether you're trying to learn some tips for yourself. I hope this video provided you everything you need. I think I might do these yearly or on some sort of semi-regular basis, just for like, to see personally what happens, and, to help you all see what it looks like year over year. Because I was thinking back and I was like, it would have been great to have a yearly update on my net worth till now to see exactly and show you guys exactly how quickly this scales. So if you enjoyed this video or these types of videos, let me know by, hitting the like button or subscribing. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate you guys watching. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace.